Phil Steele placed 8 Florida Gators on his preseason All-SEC teams, and I have some takes about the teams.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And Phil Steele put out his All-SEC preseason teams. And if you're unfamiliar with Phil Steele, very, very popular journalist that would put out the preseason magazine for all teams, not just SEC, not just Florida, but for all teams. Great information in there. I remember reading it when I was a kid, going on like that. Okay. My parents divorced. Sometimes we'd be in long car rides to go from one house to another for, custody stuff, whatever. And I would grab the magazine and I would read the preseason magazine in the car. I would look at teams that I cared about mostly. And when I was younger, I would just be like, I like this player, whatever. People that I'd play in the game with. But yeah, Phil Steele put out his list of all SEC preseason team. Interesting list. There's 4 teams, 8 Florida Gators made across those 4 teams. The first team was running back Montrell Johnson and punter Jeremy Crawshaw. I don't have issues with those. I think that Jeremy Crawshaw is a better punter than people give him credit for. And I understand that, punting's not the sexy thing that a bunch of people are going to go nuts for, but Jeremy Crawshaw does a pretty good job of getting enough hang time on his ball to let his cover team get there while also giving you at least a respectable distance on the punt. So Jeremy Crawshaw is a better punter than people give him credit for. And I do think that for a lot of people, you don't recognize really when you have a good punter. You recognize if you have an elite punter like a Matt Araiza with San Diego State a couple of years back, or if you have a terrible punter, you recognize those two. But as far as that, I feel like it's very gray area. Jeremy Crawshaw is a good punter, okay? Montrell Johnson, obviously a damn good running back. Big fan of his. I do wish that we see more of the 2021-2022 Montrell than we saw of 2023. I've said this before. I will stand on this until he tells me directly off the record that he was fully healthy, because I stand that I think he had some kind of health, some kind of injury last year that was holding him back. Because you look at 2021 and 2022 Montrell Johnson. First off, 2021 Montrell Johnson had a 99-yard rushing touchdown with Louisiana. 2022 Montrell Johnson was running through SEC defenders. 2023 Montrell Johnson, we saw get tackled one-on-one with a corner multiple times. That's rough stuff, right? So for me, I don't think Montrell was fully healthy last year. This year will hopefully be better, especially with what's expected to be an improved offensive line. I know that I put out the numbers yesterday, and someone tweeted the numbers out without giving credit for where they got it. I just want to throw that one out there. I just wanted to say that. But Montrell Johnson got hit on 41% of his carries out of 11 and 12 personnel, which is all carries except for one. Got hit on 41% of those at or behind the line of scrimmage. Hopefully that number improves for 2023 or 2024 from 2023. Second team, linebacker Shamar James, cornerback Jason Marshall Jr., long snapper Rocco Underwood. Rocco Underwood, good long snapper, quick snap time, as in the time it goes from him to whoever's holding it, whether that's the punter or the holder. Quick snap time. I do think that he's I don't think many people care about having a good long snapper or not, because again, like, you never even notice if they're good or great. You just notice if they're really bad and they screw snaps up. But something that's underrated with long snappers, that one of my favorite long snappers of all time, Zach Diassi, who was in the Ivy Leagues with Brown, and then the New York Giants, is that if you're fast getting down there, that's a ton of help for a team, whether it's fielding the punt, as in downing it, or actually making a tackle there. Cornerback Jason Marshall Jr. We know where I stand on Jason Marshall Jr. I think he can be pretty good. I still think he has the tools to be pretty good. I don't think he'll ever be as good as he was initially hyped up to be coming out as a recruit. Always said that. Had a specific parent mad at me for saying that. But I do think that he's still got potential. I think he'll be better this year than he was last year, mostly because I do think that he's going to benefit from the coaching changes this past offseason. Both Will Harris, adding Ron Roberts. I think that that'll help Austin Armstrong figure out what defensive coverages work for Jason Marshall or work for his secondary in general, and we'll pan out that way. Linebacker Shamar James is freaking good. I almost said a different word, but freaking. But linebacker Shamar James is freaking good. If he was healthy last year, we could be having this conversation about him being a first-team linebacker, but he wasn't healthy last year. I do think he's one of the more impactful linebackers. I got a comment yesterday from my show last week about the most important Florida Gators, and I didn't put Shamar James on it, and someone was upset about that. Shamar James is really good. I don't think I'll ever put a linebacker as the most important player on a defense, just because linebackers as a position, linebackers not valued like that. So if we're talking about the most important, and we go, yeah, it's not the most valuable position. It's not even a top 2 most valuable position. You could argue it's not a top 3 most valuable position. That's not going to be on that list. Third team for Phil Steele's all-SEC preseason team, offensive tackle Austin Barber, kicker Trace Mack. Trace Mack's pretty good. We'll finally, hopefully, get to see what he looks like with a full season as the kicker, because he took over a couple weeks into the season last year. He took over the job. We'll see what he gets to do. Did not miss under 40 yards last year. That's, I think, pretty damn respectable. Offensive tackle Austin Barber spent most of last year banged up, and his film from 2023 is horrendous. I mean, you go back to 2022 and it's not great, but considering how young and inexperienced he was, it's pretty good. You take it, you're happy with it. 2023 film for Austin Barber was really, really bad. But I'm not out on him. It's just it was really bad last year. I get the injuries, but even there were some things there that just I don't think were attributed to the injury. And then fourth team, the last Florida Gator, safety Jordan Castell, absolutely deserved. I saw some people a little upset that he wasn't higher on this. Look, and I'm just going to be completely honest about it. Jordan Castell last year is similar to how I talk about Francis Mauigoa with the Miami Hurricanes. And I know it pisses off Miami fans. It's not an insult at all. It's that Francis Mauigoa, for a freshman, was good. Just in general was not good. Jordan Castell, for a freshman, was really good. Just in general, as a league safety, not very good. And that's okay too. Like when you talk about a freshman and you go, yeah, they're really good for a freshman, not that good overall. That's fine. I don't think that's an insult at all. I don't. So for me, like Jordan Castell, I do think he can improve. I think he'll be put in better positions this year, but I just want to be completely honest. He was good for a freshman. He wasn't just good overall, though. And that's where I stand on Jordan Castell. I'll stand on it always. You guys know, like DB's kind of my thing here, so I will stand on that. But Jordan Castell being fourth team, I have no issues with. It's a really tough, like the conference SEC is really tough to be considered even a top 8 safety in a now 16 team conference with. They had 3-4 teams in the top 10 at the end of the year last year. Yeah, man. I'm perfectly fine with saying, hey, Jordan Castell is a top 8 safety in the conference. Not going to get much of a debate from me there. Just going to be completely honest with you. You're not going to get me up in arms about that. It's not going to happen. We are about to talk about some things that I'm a little up in arms about. A little bit. But first, we're going to get a quick word from GameTime. GameTime makes getting NBA tickets even faster and easier for the NBA Finals. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer that you get to tip off. So if you want to catch maybe an elimination game to stay alive, just saying, GameTime's the place to go. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, GameTime is taking the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, Miami at Florida tickets. Just saying, that's how I'm buying. I haven't bought my tickets yet, but I promise you, I'm doing it through GameTime. I love the all-in prices because it tells you right there what you are paying with the fees included already. Because like I'll look on StubHub or Ticketmaster and it's like, yeah, $200, no problem. And then I go to check out and it's like, psych, I lied, $320, and that just drives me absolutely crazy. So I hate that. I love the all-in pricing that GameTime has. Probably going to drop a good amount of money on the game. I like to sit close to the game. I don't care if people are like, oh, you see from better up. Don't care. I want to be right in the mix there. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals. Take it to the GameTime. Download the GameTime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. There were a few snubs, and if you haven't seen the lists, like if you don't have them in front of you, that's okay. If you haven't seen the lists, maybe you don't know who is snubbed. Maybe the only way you know anything about the list is from what I just spent 10 minutes talking about. And if you were taking notes, there were a few names that I think belonged on the list that weren't there. And there's one name that I don't know if I think belonged on the list. But I do think that it's worth a conversation, and that's Graham Mertz. Simple as that. I know that there were a lot of people that were like, Mertz not on there? Mertz not a top 4 quarterback? You could make the case no. You can make the case that he's not a top 4 quarterback in the SEC. I'm not saying it's an easy case to make, but it's, to me, an understandable one, I think, because when you're talking about what you have with these all SEC teams that he put out, like that list that he put out, I don't think that it's insane to say that Graham Mertz is fourth. First is Carson Beck from Georgia. Totally understandable. Second is Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Third is Quinn Ewers from Texas. And fourth is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Here's the thing. For me, the biggest one that's a whiff there is Jalen Milroe on the second team. Jalen Milroe is, plain and simple, not a good passer in an offense where you need to be able to throw the ball consistently. Just want to put that out there. I think Jalen Milroe can win you some damn football games. I think he's got that kind of skill set that can win you games. I'm just saying, it's an offense where you need to be able to throw the ball pretty efficiently. And he didn't really do that in quite a few games. There were some times where teams were kind of dropping back and defending him, similar to the way that they defended Caleb Williams last year. Go, yeah, we're going to rush 3, maybe 4. We're going to sit with the spies, sit in zone coverage, and make you either throw into a tight window, or you can try to take off running, but it's not going to work out for you. And that was kind of the approach that they took. And so I think if a team takes an approach with that, you should automatically not be in the top 2. Just want to say that. Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, I have no problem if you want to say they're better than Graham Mertz. Even Jalen Milroe. If you want to say Jalen Milroe is better than Graham Mertz, I'm not going to fight you too hard on it. But I do think that there's a case for Graham Mertz to be over there, considering what he did last year with that offensive line. But I also do think that considering the expectations were so low, we're maybe inflating that. But guys that absolutely deserved it, I still haven't said his name today. I just want to throw that one out there. I haven't said his name. Deserved to be on this list, though. Isn't on this list, though. Trey Wilson. Eugene Wilson III. And I've had my skeptical thoughts about him. I have. Everyone knows that. I've said it before, where it's not even a knock on him. It's just me saying, hey, you need to prove it to me a little bit, and that's fine. But there's some players that are on the list that aren't exactly proven as creating separation kind of guy. Like that's my thing with Trey Wilson, is that I don't want to say he's an elite All-American player, because I need to see you be able to create separation as a route runner. But there's players on this list that don't do that and haven't done that, and that Trey Wilson outperformed last year. And this is a projection for this year. So if you're putting those guys there, I don't know how you could put them there without Trey Wilson. That's my thing. That there's a few guys on the list at receiver, because there's 3 receivers on each team. You can't convince me that Trey Wilson's not a top 12 receiver in the SEC. Nope. I'll fight to the death on that one. I have no problem. I will fight to the death on that one. I strongly, vehemently disagree with that. And again, there's no disrespect to Phil Steele. It's just I vehemently disagree with that. Like, that Trey Wilson's not a top 12 receiver in the SEC. Come on now. Come on. I understand. Again, I get that he was a gadget last year more than anything else. But it's funky for me to not see him there. I just think that that's very, very interesting and wrong, to be honest. Just to be completely honest. Another guy not there, Jake Slaughter. Jake Slaughter is one of, if not the highest graded returning center in the SEC. In college football, he's one of the highest returning centers. Parker Brailsford with Alabama, I understand. Elite center. He was with Washington last year. That might be why you're not familiar with the name. But elite center with Washington last year, came over with DeBoer to Alabama. I understand that. Cooper Mays, sure, from Tennessee. Sure, I'll give you that. But that's kind of where I stop with that. Jake Slaughter should be, at worst, on the third team, all-SEC team. Again, I know it's preseason, but this year will prove it different. But I'm Slaughter gang till I die. So for me, this is just, it's a bad part of the list to not have Jake Slaughter on there, considering what he did last year when he didn't prepare for the season as if he was going to be this. That's the thing too. I know that I've praised Jake Slaughter a lot on this show, consistently, loudly. I get that. During the season, I was saying he's doing a fantastic job. I think part of what people don't really get when they talk about him is that he was doing that without taking first team reps all spring and summer. Kingsley Eguakin got hurt right before this season. Kingsley got hurt like 8 days before the Utah game. And then Jake Slaughter had to prep and play, and then he kept getting taken out. And there were multiple times where he was taken out. And it's like, imagine if he was given a full off season to prep like he's got this time, full season to be a starter. I disagree with you here, Phil Steele. I'm just saying. I very strongly disagree. I probably disagree with this one more than the Trey Wilson one. And that one I think is insane. But this one, come on now. Come on now. Again, no disrespect to Phil Steele, but come on now. Jake Slaughter belongs on that list. And I'm not going to get I'm not actually very mad at him or anything like that. I understand it's his opinion. It's his list. It's just a projection, whatever it may be. But hey, projections can be wrong. Yours is, Phil. And the last player that I think I'm not going to say like I'm going to fight to the death on this is Cam Jackson, defensive lineman. I'm not going to fight for another safety on the list. Not fighting for. I will also say I'll say 2 things I have wrong with this list is that they just list defensive tackle. 3 things I'll say. Actually, 3 things. They have defensive ends, linebackers. They don't have like an edge position. Okay. But they've got 4 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 2 corners, 2 safeties. And for me, I'm just looking at it like, hey, those 2 D tackle spots, one should be a nose tackle, in which case Cam Jackson would be very high up on this list. One should be a nose tackle. 2, maybe remove a D end, a linebacker, and put an edge. And 3, nickel. There's not slot on this list. Which, like, let's go to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think a lot of people wouldn't have put him here for corner or safety. But if you put slot, he's first team easily, unanimously. So that's a little issue that I have with this list of placing, because I do think that if you look at it as nose tackle, Cam Jackson would be first or second team. And I think even if you're still putting it as just D tackle, Cam Jackson belongs up there. he's not going to put up the gaudy pass rushing numbers. But what he's been able to do as a run stuffer, he deserves to be on the list. Just saying, Cam Jackson, you belong on this list. I know you're not on the list, but you belong on this list. Interior trench game, interior trench play. You got some flaws in your game here, Phil. That's all I'm saying. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we have to continue talking about Phil Steele's list because there are some other relevant things to talk about. First, well, I know that there's 2 players on the list that I saw people talk about quite a bit. We'll talk about them. First, I've said before that when it comes time to talking about transfer portal players, and I've done full episodes on individual transfer portal players that I'm like, hey, Florida, you should target. There are, 3 players on this list that I've sat here and said, hey, Florida, you should go. I'm looking through it again to just double check to make sure that I'm not missing anybody here. I don't think I am. But there are 3 players on this list. Yeah, 3 players on this list that I did episodes on. And I was like, hey, Florida, you should go target them. 1, Keandre Lambert-Smith, which fine. like fine that you didn't take him. Fine that he's not a Gator. I get it, because I'm also looking at it as if like, well, it's a little weird. But even then, I don't even care about that. The main guy I want, because Nick Scorton is also on this list. Texas A&M. Florida did not get him. Florida didn't pursue heavily for him either. But he's on the first team. And then Keandre Lambert-Smith is on the third team. Keandre Lambert-Smith ended up at Auburn. Nick Scorton ended up at Texas A&M. Just saying, I was totally on it for both of those guys. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Like I said, I've said that I've done some shows about players in the portal, and I feel good about when I watched guys, and I was like, I want Florida to go after them. I felt good about saying that. Keon Coleman's like the guy that I talk about that I'm like, hey, I was on this one. I was like, get him, please get him. And then he went to Florida State, of course, and became a very early second-round pick. Not a first-round like Reagan Pearsall, though. But one name on here, I don't think we've talked about him since he hit the portal way back when. Seydou Traore, who transferred to Colorado and then transferred out. And now he's at Mississippi State. I just want to throw that out there. He's 4th team tight end on this. You could have made the case that Hayden Hansen or Arlis Boardingham, honestly, either one of them could have made this list. But hey, we know some of the evals on this list aren't exactly great. But Seydou Traore is just a guy that I'm gonna pat myself on the back just a little bit. That it took a while, but hey, never wrong. Just early. That's all I'm saying there. But yeah, there's 2 names on this list that a lot of Florida Gators fans will recognize here. First up, Trevor Etienne. We'll victory lap it a little bit. The first team running backs, Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, Montrell Johnson from Florida. Okay. Second team running backs, CJ Baxter from Texas, Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders from South Carolina. Third team running backs, Justice Haynes from Alabama, which you may know if you've listened to this show, you've heard quite a bit of recruiting talk, and Justice Haynes was one that we talked about a bit. And Gavin Sawchuk from Oklahoma. Fourth team running backs, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee and Trevor Etienne from Georgia. He really isn't a better running back than Montrell Johnson. Yes, so I just wanted to throw that one out there. Like, I'll take a subtle jab at you because I do think that was just a wild situation to see. Also, former Florida Gator Josh Braun is on this list, by the way. He is a third team offensive guard, still with Arkansas. I believe he's in his final year, but he's on this list as well. Another third team Florida Gator on this list. Yeah, Princely Umanmielen. I know, like, hey, me and you, we've probably had some battles about Princely. I still think he's a phenomenal edge rusher. I do think that there were quite a few things about Florida Gators fans that was just wrong, like the way that he boxes on the edge there and like holds his wrist and hits. That's what they're coached to do. I know you don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it either, but it's what they're coached to do. So I'm not going to fault him for doing that. Just saying. Prince Leon is on the third team there. Looking at this list, there's a ton of edge talent in the SEC this year. I mean, there always is, but like this year's insane. Landon Jackson's on the second team, and I fully support it. But that's wild because Landon Jackson from Arkansas is really freaking good. It's really freaking good. But Nick Squirt and James Pierce, Florida will play both of them. Florida will play a lot of players on this list, obviously, because they're in the SEC. But, I mean, even quarterback. Florida plays the first team quarterback, third team quarterback, fourth team quarterback this year. Running back. Florida has a first team running back, but Florida plays a second team running back, not third team running back, and both fourth team running backs this year. Receivers, they play first team receivers. They play second team receivers, all three of the second team receivers. They play one of the third team receivers, and they play one of the fourth team receivers. Tight ends, they play three of the four. Offensive line, I mean, they're going to play a lot of them. There's a lot of variety in the offensive line here. Three on the first team. Then they play four on the second team. Yeah, this is just trench warfare is going to be insane. That defense, like they play all of the first team defense except for safety Billy Bowman with Oklahoma. And Danny Stetson also in Oklahoma. Second team defense, they play all of them except three? Man, going to be a rough year. Not in the sense of losses. I think that the Florida Gators are going to be pretty good this year, but hell of a schedule. Play a lot of guys on that list. But yeah, Florida facing three of the four quarterbacks. Tough. And again, I think the three best quarterbacks. I don't think Jalen Milroe should have been second team. Don't think he's bad. Don't think he's better than Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart. But thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Brian Smith will be joining us. I know. Boo. Yeah, I get it. We'll be joining us to talk Florida Gators recruiting, their last official visit weekend. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. And as always, I will see you all next time.